you'll never know unless you just take the leap. And you can always go back.
Mm-hmm.
Your skills, your experience, none of that is ever lost on us. And I think the biggest thing that I have gained by taking risks and by trying different things and by trusting that little voice inside of me that was like, you're stuck, it's time to move on. I have never been afraid to move on. I would rather be afraid and try something different to be stuck and unhappy my whole life.
Welcome to Living in Sync. This is a wellness and lifestyle podcast for ladies in their 30s. We've got a lot going on, and on this show, we're going to talk about it all. I'm your host, Joelle. If you're into health, wellness, fitness, beauty, fashion, business, career, time management hacks, organization, girl chats, goal setting, mom things, and everything in between, I hope this show supports you in whatever you need today. Let's dig into today's episode. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Living in Sync podcast. I have a really special guest on here today. It is one of my podcast production clients, Cathy. She is the host of the Girlfriend's Guide to Midlife podcast. And I'm so excited to bring her on here because I have literally soaked in so much wisdom from Cathy and her guests from her podcast that I wanted to bring her on here to share her story and have a little conversation about career identity and making changes throughout the course of your life. So, hey, Cathy, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm excited. Thank you for asking me to be here.
So, to kick it off, just share with my listeners a little bit about you. What season of life are you in, and what are you passionate about? All of the things.
Yeah, so I am 47 years young, living my best life. I'm in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and I have two boys that we just launched out of the nest, which is so crazy to think about and say. But my youngest is 18 and my oldest is 22, and he just got engaged.
Wow.
So
Oh, congratulations.
thanks. I'm just in the thick of a really big transition that's super exciting and fun and terrifying all at the same time.
Yeah, that phrase I'm finding that in the thick of it, we're now in life. Like we are just in the thick of life. When you become a parent, you are just sticking through those moments of being in the thick of it because each phase has something different. And that's what I love so much about your podcast is me, somebody who has kids that are elementary school age. I'm soaking in the wisdom from you and your guests that have kids who have just graduated or just moved out. And I hope that even the ladies that are listening to my show that maybe have toddlers or babies or they're pregnant, that they hear me, that they go to your show and just soak in wisdom from women who live life. And I did see you guys had a really beautiful sunny spring day in Colorado this weekend. And I was like seeing you enjoy it. So that is so cool. And as Cathy and I got on our first discovery call together, before we knew if we were going to be working together in the podcast capacity, Cathy shared her story with me about all that she's changed through in life. And I think a lot of the ladies on here, Cathy, have either been working, started their career because it was something they decided when they were 18 years old, if this is what I'm going to be when I grow up. It's still such a hard question for me to even ask 18-year-olds where it's like, what are you going to do? Who are you going to be? Because I'm like, why are we asking them to make that decision? But a lot of my listeners, myself included, you heard my story about switching from network marketing into podcast production. And a lot of times our identity can be wrapped up in something like what we do or our career. And talk to us about your different career background, the different careers that you've had and the shifts and changes that you've gone through to get to what you're doing today.
Yeah. So, I first want to just acknowledge like I'm probably maybe 15 years ahead of most of your listeners. I'm assuming 10, 15 years ahead. And maybe some of them are even around my age because I think a lot of the things that you talk about are really relevant. But, midlife in general, I think is all about a state of mind. But I remember started having some midlife. And so anyway, I think I just maybe have 10 years on you.
Yeah. And that's what we're here
But
to soak in. That's what we're here to
I
soak in.
also really believe that, us as women, that we want to balance all of the different elements of our life. We want to balance the identity of being a mom and the identity of having our own career and our own hobbies and our own interests and being a good wife if you're married, if that's the path you go. Like, we as women, we like a lot of identities. So career has always been something that's been really, really important to me. I came from a single parent home, watched my mom like work really, really hard. And I was first generation college student. So my path really started with this just drive and goal to be something bigger and more. And I didn't know what that was, but in high school, I knew college was the next step. And I would say now, I don't even know if I would think the same way
Right.
if I was graduating now, but back then, that's what I thought. So I went to college, ended up pursuing a degree long term in school counseling and in a roundabout kind of way. And I started out in that profession when my boys were little. So when my youngest was like 3, and then I was just having my youngest was a newborn and my oldest was 3. And I thought, oh, that's the perfect balance in momhood life, right? So I remember all of those phases of parenting very well. That's one of my number one values is family. And it just didn't do it for me. Like, I would get home at the end of every day thinking I'm going to have summers with them. But I was so maxed out. And, back then I was like, I don't know, 28, 29. And I'm like, this is not it. This isn't what life should be like. I just personally, at a very young age, I think 28 is really young to have
Yeah.
this awareness that I don't want to be stuck. I don't want to feel like I have to settle. And more than anything, it challenged my mental health. I didn't have enough to give at the end of the day for my littles. And like you, I journeyed into the space of network marketing and direct sales, and I will forever be grateful for that opportunity. I worked in direct sales for 10 to 12 years, on and off, mostly on, but in 3 different jewelry companies. I built 3 different companies to very high levels, 6-figure incomes plus in all 3 companies, and loved it. Met some of the most amazing women. I think just reflecting now, now I'm in real estate, but reflecting now on my career path and journey, I I just feel like no experience is ever lost on us. We meet some of the most amazing people. We learn so much about ourselves. There's just so many things, but I had a similar story, like to many people that are experiencing it now in network marketing. But my first jewelry company closed back in 2014, and I was at the top of my game, hit one of the most prestigious awards in that company. I was going to be in the catalog, went to have the photo shoot taken, came back, and a month later, they told us they were closing.
Wow.
And I just felt blindsided. And at the same time, my husband, who was a career firefighter, was injured on the job and was told that it was a career-ending injury. So 2014 was probably one of the most challenging years of our lives, where we had to make really big decisions. And
Because
I've always
kids were
been,
young. Your kids were young at that time.
yeah, at this time they were like 8 and 12. And we were in the thick of it, right? You can imagine your kiddos are around a little bit younger, around that age. We were doing all of the soccer. We were just on the grind. Our boys were very involved. We were, I don't know, just busy. Life was just the thick of it, like I am now, but just a different thick of it. I mean, so I had to shift, and it was a really, really challenging time, but I knew I was on the right path. It was probably one of the most fulfilling times of my life, even though it was one of the hardest, because I was aligned and doing exactly what I knew I was supposed to be doing. I was happy. I was successful. I had great relationships. And to have the rug kind of pulled out from under me was breath, like it took my breath away. A lot of my girlfriends and I Now we talk about it. It was almost kind of like, you might relate to this, like a plane crash where we were all on this plane and the plane crashed and only a few of us survived. Like it was that level of grief. So for anybody that's lost a job or a career or been in network marketing and had their business taken from them, I mean, it was just really challenging. And I ended up going to my second jewelry company and splitting ways with my team. And they were going in a different direction, and my upline leaders were going in a different direction. And I just was really like, I felt like I had grown up and I had to trust myself. And my intuition was like, no, that's not the path for you. So I went with a different company. And anyway, that was life changing in itself and came to lots of forks in the road through that, turbulent ending to going with a different company to rebuilding and partnering with a bunch of different women and leaders and learning so much about myself. And I came to this space. It was kind of a really dark time, probably like 3 years later. And that's when I leaned in and started getting some life coaching. And I just remember my life coach at the time, Heather, just really, really challenging me on identity,
Oh, yeah.
and like doing exercises because my self doubt, for whatever reason, I just was in, and I was really successful, but I just was unhappy and unfulfilled. And it was kind of that fork in the road where I was like, okay, well, I guess I don't have to do this forever. I was really fulfilled at my last company, and I got so much value from my second company, but it just felt like it was time. And I don't know, felt empowered to, through my coaching, to take a leap of faith and go in a different direction. And that direction was just odds and ends things. I worked 1 year in sales at an office job, and I suck at working at an office. It's just not my personality at all. I worked a year in the mortgage business. I just was trying different things, but I think the best part is now is like I'm in real estate. I love real estate. It's been amazing. It fulfills a lot of my needs. Minus the women empowerment part. I do work with a lot of women, but there was just something missing, which is why I launched my podcast. But this theme of looking back on my life and going, gosh, I really, truly never stayed stuck.
Yeah. You did
I
that.
gave myself permission along the path to try different things, to take risks, to trust my intuition. And honestly, I don't know where that came from. It was probably just something innate, and also just from a lot of growth. In network marketing, you do a lot of personal development, a lot of growth, and you're surrounded by some of the most amazing people that help you grow. But I always just kind of have had this theme of I don't make personal decisions. It's always business decisions when it comes down to career. And sometimes when you're making business decisions, but you're in a very personal, you choose very personal relationship type of careers, that can be really hard.
That's so true. That is so true. I'm literally having an epiphany right now because I mean, there was that sense with even my network marketing company where it was so personal. And that's the work that I've done is detaching so much personal and business. Actually, one of my peers talks about this now because she went towards the direction of graphic design, and I still have to get in my own head about I don't have to share this little micro moment of my life because that's what we were taught and told to do. And so this all of what you just talked about and everything from going to, you know, a school counselor, that's very like a well-known career, as in you say what it is that you do and people know it and get it. And then into the network marketing world where people are like, what? Like how do you do that? Does that really
And
actually
why are you doing that? And what are you doing?
yeah.
And
Yeah. How do you actually make money from it? And then into real estate. And I loved how at the end of your story, you talked about how you just went and you tried different things until something clicked. And I think there's two types of women where it's like the over action taker where it's like there's just bulldozing and they're maybe finding the opportunities where it's okay, maybe you need to slow down and think this through a little bit, or the other person who goes into analysis paralysis. So I want to kind of, if we can, think about those times where you were making decisions to change, and now with your wisdom, whether that's, even one of my girlfriends was talking about, I went to college for this, I told such and such an X, Y, and Z that I was gonna be this career, and now I've done that, and they tell everybody and everybody, my daughter and my granddaughter is a blah blah blah, but she's has it in her heart to like navigate something new, something different, and try something different. What's like your wisdom for the woman who's like on that path, because you've walked that so many times of making that decision and taking action?
I mean, it's scary to me to change, but it's also it's just worth it. I mean, you got to analyze your situation. I get it sometimes, but we do overanalyze financially and what are people going to think? And to be honest, I forgot to say that I actually went back into school counseling
Oh, yeah.
after I dabbled in like mortgage and that, and then I decided to go back into school counseling, and the pandemic hit, and it was awful. And it wasn't even just the pandemic. I mean, I met some amazing people and friends when I went back to the schools, but that lasted 3 years because I was like, there's a reason why I left. And so I think it's just you'll never know unless you just take the leap. And you can always go back.
Mm-hmm,
Your
mm-hmm.
your skills, your experience, none of that is ever lost on us. And I think the biggest thing that I have gained by taking risks and by trying different things and by trusting my that little voice inside of me that was like, you're stuck, it's time to move on. I have never been afraid to move on. I don't know why. I don't have anything special to really say other than, I mean, it was scary, but I would rather be afraid and try something different to be stuck and unhappy my whole life. And so I could honestly say I've lived a pretty fulfilled path because I've given myself permission to try new things, to experience other things, to meet different types of people. And when I look back, that's probably the thing that I'm the most proud of is being able to like think about all the people and all the experiences, the people I've met and experiences that I have that I wouldn't have had if I didn't take the risks and
Yeah.
try something different.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is, I've listened obviously to every single episode of your show, multiple times of each episode. And the crazy part is, and we'll get to the quiet five questions that you ask at the end of your show, but you ask everybody the question of what is the one thing you wish your younger self would have known. Did you notice that almost everybody has said, I wish I would just tell her it all will work out. It
Ah,
all works out. Almost everybody, not everybody. I think it was up until episode 7 where somebody gave a different answer. But Cathy, I'm not kidding you. Everybody has said that the wisdom they wish they gave their younger self was that it will all work out. And I think that's just a beautiful place to interject that right here, because all of what you're talking about is the scary stuff. I love that you acknowledge that it's scary to extend networking, or to think about going from something that's comfortable to something that is new. And what if you don't like it? Well, then what if you don't like it? Then you can try a different direction. But also, I want to talk about this, and I don't know if you have any thoughts or insight or hindsight. It's that perspective of, first jewelry company, absolutely amazing, top of your game, and then you made the switch to other companies, and it just didn't land. And I personally saw this with a lot of my Beachbody peers where they were like, okay, panic button. Now I need to go. They were interviewing with other companies and searching for their next quote unquote home. And I just thought that was kind of insane. It was, I mean, not even kidding you. We had been building these businesses for a decade ish. And I get it. It was out of like livelihood necessity, but it was within 2 weeks that they were saying, oh, I found a new home. Does your heart have anything to say to that essence and element? I don't think all of my listeners are in that space and place, but I bet some wisdom could translate.
I mean, I think so. If my younger self quote is, if I could tell my younger self something, it is your path is your purpose. And I feel like women, we ultimately want to live a fulfilled life with purpose, on purpose, right? We want to be the best mom we can be. We want to make an impact. We all have our individual why. And to me, the path that we're on is our purpose. And it helps us fulfill so many things. When I was going through that, and I was at the top of my game, I did the same thing. I interviewed the companies. I, felt and I think it's an okay next step. But if it doesn't land and if it's not going well, and if you get to this space of restlessness, just trust that because it is a beautiful business and there are other opportunities out there, and I have zero regrets about the path that I'm on or have been on, or the companies that I've tried, because of all of the people that I've met along the way and the experiences that I've gained and the wisdom that I have now. But I ultimately 100% agree that it always works out and it's always enough. And there is, when you lose something so significant, if it's a job or anything, like it is very much a human nature, natural thing to go into scarcity mode and to fear, oh my gosh, where's my next meal going to come from? Where's, what's going to happen to everything I built? I mean, just the spiral, right? And I guess my biggest advice and the thing that's helped me the most through that is to always lean into gratitude and to really, really heavily focus on what you have and what you're grateful for. And I promise you, if you look at that, you will always see that it's always been enough. We have come, I don't care if you're 20, 25, 30, 35, we come to several crossroads in our lives. And, just those points of reflection, when we come to a crossroad, to me, it's an opportunity to reflect. And when you reflect and you take the time to reflect, man, it's powerful. You will always see that it's always enough. It will always work out. And to trusting your gut and your instinct, no matter where you're at in the journey, if it's your second company or your third company, or you're changing your careers, or you're not with a company and you're doing a traditional career and you're unhappy and you want to become a stay-at-home mom, trust that. Give yourself permission to just lean in and learn what that would look like. And heck, if you try it, worst case scenario, you're going to fail and you're going to learn from it. That's how we learn, is we fail. So anyway, I just think there's a lot of resilience in change, but there's an opportunity in change.
Yeah. Solid wisdom. Oh, that was so good. So good that I mean, mic drop. That was incredible in the sense of I love so much where it's your path is your purpose. And I love that you even gave that micro example of somebody contemplating being a stay-at-home mom, because once again, that's a season. And now with hindsight, you can see how those seasons, but I know ladies who are in that season, it's hard to have that reflection. It's hard to anchor in that gratitude, but it does just bring in such a great path. And my other podcast client, Corey Lee, everybody on here has heard me talk about her, and I've had her on the show too. She is in recovery. She's been sober for 8 years, and really a lot of the principles of AA and living one day at a time, the serenity prayer, all of those things apply for living out into, if your belief is God's will or your purpose, because really all we have is today and right now. And even if in today there's question marks of what's going to be happening in the future, if you live today well, and then you show up and you do tomorrow well with what tomorrow brings you, that's going to add on and stack up to a life well lived in the moment as best as you can without getting in your head too much. So I love that. And I know that community and women sharing their stories is really, really important to you and something that you love so much. So share a little bit about, because you guys have heard her story, like this, she's not just a podcast host, she's doing all of the things. And so talk about the heart behind A Girlfriend's Guide to Midlife podcast.
Well, I feel like in reflecting, like when my youngest son flew the nest, I just was like, gosh, what's this next journey for me? My identity was so wrapped up, and it still is. We're always a mom, but I really just was like, I want this phase of my life to really be the best phase. We get to this part of our life where, letting go is hard, but it's also very exciting. And trust me, it was a lot harder before it was exciting. I've cried a lot. But I just really wanted to lean in and do something for me. And there's a lot of things that I still want to learn. I'm a very growth-minded person. When I started to unpack the things that I want to learn and the experiences I want to do and all of that, I really just thought, gosh, our girlfriends have so much wisdom. I feel, the midlife stage of life is so full of challenges and things that, we're just really wanting to lean in and learn from. And then my path has been full of really leading and empowering women. And my big purpose is to help other women live a fulfilled life. And I could have done that. I could have become a life coach, and I don't know where this path is going to take me. I still might do that, but I'm right now, I'm really just kind of letting it unfold the way it's supposed to. I'm literally one step in front of the other. The podcast has been the first time in my life that I can honestly tell you I am doing it perfectly imperfect. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just showing up. That's why I begged you to be my podcast editor, manager, because I'm like, I don't want to have to manage that part. And your heart it was so aligned with mine. But it really is just about women empowerment. And I also think there's so much power in women sharing their stories that there's a lot of healing. There's a lot of strength and empowerment. I don't even think most women realize how amazing they are. And so I just wanted to kind of give voice and space. I wanted to give space for women to come on and to come to those aha moments of, wow, I have lived a really well life. I am doing really well. I am resilient. I am strong. And I'm killing it at midlife, even though, my joints hurt and I can't sleep. And, I have cramps like crazy and all the women yuck, right? Like all of that's real, but there's so much more to us.
Yeah, I love it. I love the podcast so much because hearing the different stories and experiences of what these incredible ladies have lived through. And it's not the typical, I think there's so many podcasts out there that are like copy paste. It's the same thing as somebody else is doing, but they're doing it as somebody else. And it's just so unique to hear because you don't just bring on the influencers or the speakers or the person. They're just incredible, remarkable women that are living their paths and their purpose and their plans without needing to be like the mega known person or whatever. So at the end of your podcast, which is really fun, you have a segment of 5 questions, and I get to ask you those 5 questions. So the first one being, what is your pump up song?
Confident by Demi Lovato.
That came on during my like run jog last night. I say run so loosely, and I was like, this is a banger. I love it.
Yeah, girl. It gets me in any kind of good headspace. If it's when I'm working out or when I'm going into a listing presentation for real estate or whatever it is, it just makes me feel really good.
Oh, that's a good one. I love it. Your favorite beauty product?
I love Rare Beauty mascara.
A Rare Beauty. Oh my gosh,
Mhm.
haven't tried. But obviously, no, that's Selena's, right? Yeah, Rhode is Hailey Bieber's
I
rare
don't even know.
Selena's.
I just like it.
Wow.
I
Well,
probably got it. I go to Sephora and I ask for recommendations and I tell them what I'm looking for and they just give me the things.
and they hit the mark every time because, okay, I'll share with you one of mine. I went to Sephora and said the same thing, and they said it was Lady Gaga's. So it's very easy to remember the celebrity name, but it's Lady Gaga's House of Labs foundation. And I love it so
Ooh,
much. And I've been recommending it. And I think even on their website, you can order a sampler kit of 3 shades. But what I would just do is if you have a foundation shade you know matches you, just Google it. I love to wear this shade of this brand foundation. Or ask them that at Sephora because they literally were just like, oh, you like this shade of this brand? Oh, that's a this in the Lady Gaga House of Labs, and it was so good.
ooh, I
So,
like that.
so good. What is your guilty pleasure you cannot resist?
Botox.
Yes, I was here
I
for that.
I told my husband the other night, I'm like, man, we're trying to minimize spending and be really conscious this year. And I'm like, I can't give it up. I'm
It's
sorry. We got to budget it in.
it's not going to happen. I started getting it for my TMJ, so now it's medically necessary. But
Well,
we
and you
just
know what? I didn't start getting Botox until I was 45.
yeah,
And I actually have heard it's better to start younger because over time it trains your muscles. And over time you won't have to keep using more and more. You'll actually be able to use less
yeah,
because it trains your muscles.
yeah, yeah. Next question is the what is the one thing you wish your younger self wouldn't know? You already say it, but say it again because
Your
it's
path is your purpose.
yeah. Take it. Take your own way. Put the blinders
Yeah.
on. I know that's cliche, but go in your own direction. I love that.
Hmm.
What is an unfulfilled bucket list dream of yours?
So I have two. I really want to hike Machu Picchu.
Wow.
Yeah, do the overnight, the camping, the long hike. And I also really want to cruise the Mediterranean.
Oh, yes. Yep, yep, yep. As I was even listing out this question, I was like, maybe I'm just in that season of life with little kids. I'm kind of coming out of it now where I swear, when my kids were babies and toddlers, if you asked me what my dreams were, I was like,
to to
to
get a good night's sleep.
get a good night's sleep. So as I was writing this out, I'm like, I don't even know how I would answer that. But the Mediterranean, I would love to travel Greece, Italy, but do it with somebody who knows the area well because I have that fear of traveling where we're going to get there and if I am in charge of what are we going to do? Where should we go? Blah, blah, blah. That makes it not fun for me. I just wanted to put on a cute outfit and have a tour guide be like, okay, and next we're going to this restaurant because it's great. And next we're going to go hang at this beach because it's great. And next we're going to do this touristy thing. And I'm just like, yeah,
Along for the ride.
show me
Yes.
where to go.
Yes. I think the cruise would be exactly that.
Yes, that is a good one. I love that so much. Well, thank you so much for coming on here today. I hope all of you guys check out the podcast. Of course, I will leave it linked in the show notes as well as all of your social medias where they can find and connect with you because this podcast is really great. It is for a greater purpose to share stories. And if any of you guys have a story that you'd like to share on Cathy's podcast, you can message me. I can be a filter to connect the two of you or whatever, because I know some of you ladies listening have some incredible stories to share and they're of a variety of topics. So just so cool. Thank you so much, Cathy.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you loved what you heard or you want to share your favorite episode topics, please leave a rating and review. This helps the podcast growth and gives people an idea of what the podcast is all about. Something new and exciting that I wanted to share with you before we go is that we now have a Patreon page. This has replaced the Feminine Edge collective community in a cohesive place that is easier for me to manage and cheaper for you. If you are interested in our monthly classes, exclusive day in the life vlogs, Bible studies, community Q&A, and more, go to patreon.com/livingInSync and join for just $5 a month. Check out the show notes for any links or details of things referenced in today's episode, and I look forward to chatting with you in the next one.